My wife returned from a work retreat with a hickey. She swears it's a bug bite, but I'm not convinced. I'm at a loss. How do I move forward? I'm 27 million, in a fight with my wife, 28 million. We've had fights before but not this bad. I'm at a loss on how to proceed. For context, we're college sweethearts married for almost 6 years. We have a daughter, 4F. Our relationship was never perfect or without challenges. We've faced some family opposition with cultural differences, but we've made it work. She's my first love and my best friend. My wife works in a corporation. Her job has annual work retreats that last for about a week. This year was in Vegas. I usually arrange my work schedule and tag along with her, and we make our own trip out of it. We couldn't this year. Our daughter gets major anxiety traveling long distances. We're working on it, but she wasn't budging, and we decided to choose our battles. So I stood behind and held down the fort at home. The change of plans was a bummer because the trip was part of us reconnecting as both a couple and as a family. My wife's work hours have taken a toll, and her work-life balance leaves much to be desired. We entertained the idea of her skipping the retreat. Attendance is optional, but it's generally frowned upon if you don't, and my wife's making connections in her field. She grew increasingly weird. We have a system if either of us is away for extended periods. We keep in contact. For the first day or so, she was herself, but she grew distant. I'd even text her about important stuff and be left on read while she claimed she never saw my text. Whenever we talked, she was rushing me or our daughter off the phone. These were all times she wasn't involved in retreat activities. We were supposed to have a mini birthday celebration for our daughter over FaceTime. Our daughter was excited. It was something my wife promised her because the retreat overlapped her actual birthday. But my wife backed out because she had people up to her room after a seminar. It was like she wanted my permission to break her promise to our daughter. I told her I wasn't offering that nor making her keep her word. She said I wasn't being fair, and this was a networking opportunity. They were business-oriented and wouldn't understand her stepping away for family time. I said her decision is her decision, but she'd have to explain it to our daughter. She promised her that she'd rain-check the following day. Our daughter didn't understand and cried. My wife ended up hanging up and leaving me to comfort our daughter alone. That whole incident rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't like it. She didn't keep her word for the rain check either. She was documenting the retreat on social media. One coworker, 23 million, was almost in every pic video attached to her hip. In one pic he had his arm too comfortably around her IMO. He's a recent hire in my wife's department. She was asked to oversee him. I don't like the guy. He doesn't know boundaries. Once, in response to a work assignment, he texted my wife that she's exactly the kind of woman he needs to keep him in check. My wife had brushed it off. She feels bad for him because he's not fitting in. She took him under her wing during his first retreat with the team. If I'd questioned, she'd say she was tired or networking. There was always something. But I've seen her at these retreats. This wasn't like her. She was just off. The day before her return home, she complained about a bruise on her neck. She stressed it was a bug bite. I didn't actually see the bruise until she came home. I instantly thought it was a full-on hickey. She kind of brushed it off after making a big deal of it over the phone. I didn't push because our daughter was present. But when I was able to confront her, she clung to her bug bite claim. When I kept pushing, she asked what I was trying to imply. I outright said I believed she had a hickey, and I didn't believe she was being honest with me. We had it out then. She was offended and pissed at the accusation. Infidelity has always been a sore topic. Her family has a history of infidelity. So we had a pretty bad fight, and she accused me of looking to pick a fight due to the incident with our daughter's birthday. I told her it had nothing to do with that and everything to do with a hickey on her neck. The fight ended in an impasse. We're still not recovered. She swears it's a bug bite. But I'm not convinced. I've always trusted my wife. I never doubted her, but this bruise doesn't look like a bug bite. It looks like a hickey. I only feel more strongly when I consider how distant and weird she was during the Vegas retreat. Now she's been wearing turtlenecks ever since, and we're caught between arguing and her dousing our daughter and me with affection. Communication usually prevails for us, but not now. I think my accusation pushed us to a new level of argument. I'm at a loss here. I really need outside perspectives. How do I move forward? Comments. Comment 1. I have been to Vegas and never saw a single bug. It is like dry as fuck, desert-like. Not saying they aren't there, but it's not like she was in the Mayan Riviera. This is all super sus. Don't let her gaslight you. She clearly got a hickey, which is dumb as fuck in itself, probably from the idiot who is too inexperienced to know what he was doing, and preemptively came up with an excuse knowing what it would look like. Out of character behavior. Neglecting her daughter. New young guy hanging off her, that is in photos she knew you could end up seeing. What about what you couldn't see? Eyebrow raising texts. Comment 2. I used to travel regularly to Vegas several times a year for about 8 years, worked for the gambling industry. I have never seen a bug anywhere in the vicinity of Las Vegas. What I did see though was a lot of drunks and infidelity. I'm not saying she cheated. But he's right to be suspicious. Comment 3. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I've never gotten a bug bite that looked like a hickey. Did she show you her phone or provide any proof that could support her innocence, or just dismiss you? The extra affection is a common move from guilt-ridden cheaters. Even if we stretch the imagination and believe it is a big bite, she wasn't acting trustworthy, nor was she a good mother while she was in Vegas, and she needs to address and correct that. OP. No, I haven't had access to her phone. We usually have an open phone policy, but it's not something we've ever really done. I'm sure it'll be another argument. Yeah, you don't get to disconnect from being a parent, especially to a minor, for extended holidays. You certainly don't ghost them on their birthday and when you promise to do something special for them and got the child excited about it, or hang up on them while they're crying. I'm not insecure. My wife's gone on retreats before. We both work outside the home and have the care for our daughter. So it's not an imbalance. My wife's work-life balance is out of sorts. She's in the company of other adults plenty. I've been with my wife on these retreats and other social events. I know how she is. She was off this entire trip, nor was it appreciated her entertaining a coworker who ignores boundaries, having his arm wrapped around her waist like he was claiming her or something. I trusted her when she said she had a bug bite. I got things to help her treat it when returned. It was only after I saw the bruise in person that there was no mistaking it was a hickey for me, and I questioned her on it. Update. 7 days later. 27 million. Wanted to give an update and thank everyone who reached out. The outside perspectives helped. Things are a roller coaster. I'm trying to process. It took a while for my wife, 28F, and me to have any real conversation about the bruise on her neck. We were stuck between arguing and her showering our daughter, 4F, and me with affection. I rarely saw the bruise because she was turtlenecked up. But I did note the healing process from reddish purple to yellow. There wasn't any more discussion about the Vegas retreat. She made it clear she was done talking about it and that she shouldn't need to defend herself to her husband. I told her she could do whatever she wanted, but I was done being treated like an idiot, and I wasn't sharing a bed with someone I couldn't trust. So I moved into the guest room. Communication stopped. The silences were palpable. Even our daughter noticed. I'm not proud of that. I try keeping her out of fights. My wife came to the guest room one night and asked if we could talk. I could tell she'd been crying. She said she hated the way things were between us. She felt she was losing me either way. I told her I needed complete honesty. She confessed she hooked up with that coworker, 23 million, on our daughter's birthday. The hickey was from him. She was lost in the heat of the moment and didn't realize he was sucking so hard on her neck. By her account, they made out while doing some on top of the clothes stuff, and then he went down on her. It stopped there because he called her by a nickname that I affectionately call her. It snapped her back to the reality of her actions. She went to splash water on her face and saw the hickey. The guy made light of it and made a joke about the hickey being her souvenir. She blew up on him and kicked him out of her suite. Part of the reason she was avoiding me was out of guilt. She said she's coming clean because she doesn't want to hide things anymore. I asked her why she cheated. What was it about that guy she deemed worth risking everything? She claimed it wasn't him specifically, nor is she unhappy with our marriage. She doesn't really know how to explain it, but a part of her feels broken. The more she looks in the mirror, the more she sees her dad, 57 million. A cycle of being consumed with work, distant from the child, and the infidelity he put her mom, 55 degrees Fahrenheit, through. She said her family never talked about anything openly, and how when she was growing up, my mother-in-law never addressed anything with her. I said her parents didn't make her cheat. She chose to party up with a guy who constantly disrespected our relationship. These were all her decisions, and she at any point could have chosen our family. She agreed. She wants to blame her parents but realizes this is on her. She apologized for cheating and for entertaining the guy's advances. She said she'll do whatever it takes to repair. Go to HR, quit her job, counseling, anything. She wants to make everything right. I told her I don't know what right looks like or if that's possible for us anymore. I knew we had our problems, but I thought there wasn't anything we couldn't talk out. She insisted we still could talk it out. We didn't have to give up on us. She tried giving this rally cry for our relationship, but I felt very numb. I said I didn't recognize her. Not just the betrayal of our vows but also how she treated our daughter. She's like a stranger. She feels she failed as a wife and mom, but she loves us both beyond words and wants our life together and our family intact. I told her I couldn't give her the answer she wanted and thought we needed to separate and reevaluate. She didn't want separation. She felt we should stay together in our home, but I told her a separation was happening. Either she was leaving the home or I was with our daughter. She consented to leaving so as to best not uproot our daughter so much. She asked for our daughter not to be taken away from her. My wife's staying with my in-laws. I know that's difficult in itself because she doesn't have the best relationship with her parents. One of the hardest parts is the shift for our daughter. Right now, she believes her mom's just busy with work per usual. She hasn't questioned it too much. My mother-in-law called the other day. She made no excuses for my wife, but she's advocating for us to work through it. She told me times when she heard my wife describe me as the anchor she always wanted. She believes there's something worth fighting for if I'm open. Despite some family opposition we faced throughout our relationship, my mother-in-law was always a supporter of us. I'm even more at a loss. I never imagined this kind of betrayal from my wife. She was my safe place. I feel numb yet broken. I'm in love with her. That hasn't changed. But I don't see myself, her, our relationship, or our family the same. Everything's more tense because it's fresh. I think this period of separation is for the best. I'm not sure about divorce. I haven't let myself fully go there. I'm not set either way. I don't know where things go from here, but I'm focusing on our daughter and taking things one step at a time. I feel that's all I can do right now. Thanks again to everyone for the support, it's much appreciated. TLDR update 4. My wife returned from a work retreat in Vegas with a hickey on her neck. She swears it's a bug bite, but I'm not convinced. I only feel more strongly when I consider how distant and weird she was during the retreat. We're stuck between arguing and her dousing our daughter and me with affection. I'm at a loss. I really need outside perspectives. How do I move forward? Comments. Comment 1. Do you think she is still trickling through you? How would the coworker know your nickname for her? Good luck onwards. OP. Also think about this part of your comment whenever your wife tells you she is sorry. Cheating on you is one thing, but your wife's behavior towards her daughter is sickening. Comment 2. I was just on a work trip with a coworker who has a couple of little kids similar in age to OP's. He had arranged his travel times to make it easier on them and went back to the hotel to call them every night. Nothing about how the wife is acting is normal or okay. Comment 3. They didn't stop until he came inside your wife. You know that, right? Comment 4. She had plenty of time to craft a story where she was less offensive. He went down on her only? Okay. Comment 5. Yeah, that's a convenient story. It's bad but offers a glimpse of it's not so bad she didn't really do anything to him. That's just not believable to me. Also the MIL is not your friend here OP, she's trying to help her child. Again, don't settle for this treatment. I found out my boyfriend and sister were secretly dating. I decided to get revenge and make them pay for how they treated me. Life has a tendency of delivering unexpected turns, don't you think? I never imagined that I'd be here sharing my heart with strangers online. Up until a month ago, I believed I had everything figured out. I'm a 48-year-old woman who lives in New York City. In addition to having a close-knit family and a loving boyfriend, I was the vice president of a prosperous advertising agency. Right now, nothing is certain to me now. It all began on what appeared to be a typical Tuesday. When I realized I had left my USB drive at home, I was in a hurry to attend to a crucial customer appointment. Not a huge thing, is it? I requested my sister Sarah, 44F, who was spending the week with us, to email me the files when I contacted her. I had no idea how much one small request would rock my world. My heart stopped when I opened Sarah's email. I was staring at private messages between her and my boyfriend Tom, 45 megabytes, rather than my job files. I initially assumed it was some sort of twisted prank. But the terrible reality dawned on me as I read through the innumerable conversations. For the previous 6 months, my sister and my boyfriend had been having an affair. I had the feeling that I would get sick. I could hardly grasp my phone since my hands were shaking so much. In the hope that I was misinterpreting those messages, I must have read them a dozen times. However, everything was in black and white, including the inside jokes, the flirty banter, and the in-depth accounts of their covert meetings. How I handled that client encounter is beyond me. With my mind spinning from everything I had learned, I was operating automatically. I hurried home as soon as it was over, resolved to face Tom. He was sitting on the couch watching TV as if nothing were wrong when I stormed into our flat. My blood boiled at the sight of him, so careless and uninformed. How long? I threw my phone at him and demanded it. After a little period of confusion, His face became pale as he came to terms with what I had witnessed. He stammered, I don't know what you're talking about, but I could see the remorse on his face. Don't lie to me, Tom, I spit out. I noticed the messages. Sarah and you. For what duration has this been occurring? He initially made an effort to deny it, but as I recounted passages from their conversations, he broke down. He finally said, 6 months, in a voice that was almost audible above a whisper. It simply occurred. We didn't intend for it to, he said, but I interrupted. I didn't want to listen to his justifications. 6 months. A half year of deceit and treachery. He was with my sister when I was working late, assuming he was watching TV at home. I became physically nauseated at the prospect. I said, get out, my voice trembling with hurt and rage. I don't ever want to see you again. Tom remained silent. I was left alone in the apartment we had shared for the previous 2 years after he took a few items and departed. I started crying as soon as he left. I wept till my eyes were dry. After that, I sat there feeling empty and numb. How could they harm me like this? Since I was a young child, Sarah has been my best friend and sister. Growing up, we had shared everything, dreams, clothes, and secrets. What about Tom? He seemed like the one to me. We discussed getting married and creating a future together. Everything felt like a lie now. I gave Sarah a call the following day. To comprehend why she would betray me in this way, I wanted to hear it directly from her. I could tell she already knew when her face showed up on my screen. She appeared as though she hadn't slept because of her swollen, red eyes. She began. I'm so sorry. But I interrupted her. Why? With a chilly tone, I inquired. Why would you harm me in this way? As she attempted to explain, Sarah broke down and started crying. She sobbed. I didn't mean for it to happen. Tom and I simply clicked. I believe I'm in love with him, but I know that's no justification. Her remark struck me like a blow to the body. Are you in love with him? In love with my boyfriend, my own sister? In my stomach, it was like a knife twisting. Feeling more alone than ever, I hung up the phone without saying anything else. I contacted our parents, John, 55 million, and Mary, 53 feet, since I wanted to talk to someone in order to make sense of this mess. I believed that they would be sympathetic and supportive, and that they would be outraged on my behalf. Rather, their response made me feel even more deceived. My mom said, "Oh honey," after I told them everything. "Sarah probably didn't mean to cause you any harm. You are aware of her tendency toward impulsivity." What I was hearing was unbelievable. Didn't intend to cause me pain. She spent 6 months having sex with my boyfriend. Now, my father added. Let's not rush things. The most essential thing is family. If you all get together and have a conversation, I'm confident you can resolve this. Figure this out. Were they sincere? How could I simply forgive and go on from something like this? They obviously cared more about maintaining order than they did about my feelings. On top of everything else, their response felt like yet another betrayal. As the days went by, I saw that I alternated between intense fury and debilitating melancholy. I was unable to eat or sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Tom and Sarah smiling together over their deception of me. My thoughts were consumed by the betrayal. I wasn't interested in playing happy families, but my parents kept calling to attempt to set up a family gathering to sort things out. How could I ever have faith in Tom or Sarah again? Knowing what my sister had done, how could I sit across from her at the dinner table? Something inside of me exploded during one of these phone conversations with my mother. When I cut her off, she was rambling on about forgiving others and moving on. No, I firmly answered. I won't act like everything is fine. They cannot be forgiven for what they did. But it's not healthy to hold on to anger, sweetie, she objected. You must. I need my family to realize how much I'm hurting, I interrupt. But I'm done because it's obvious that won't happen. I've had enough of Sarah. I've had enough of Tom. And this is the end of our talk. With my heart pounding, I hung up. I had clarity for the first time since this whole nightmare started. I had had enough of being the victim. I had to take charge of my life once more. I scheduled a meeting with a lawyer and called in sick to work the following day. As I told my narrative, Jessica, 50 degrees Fahrenheit, listened calmly and then leaned forward, her eyes concentrated and alert. You have choices, and you have been wronged, she continued. Given your professional relationship with Tom, we can investigate this from a number of perspectives, including emotional distress, breach of trust, and potentially even workplace harassment. I sensed hope, something I hadn't felt in weeks, as Jessica outlined possible tactics. Hope for justice, not for forgiveness or reconciliation. I wish I could transform this suffering into something strong. How about Sarah? I inquired. Is there anything we can do to stop her involvement? Jessica gave a slow nod. Even though dealing with family members is more difficult, there are still options available to us. We can at least make sure that any assets that the family may have in common are safeguarded. That afternoon, as I walked out of Jessica's office, my head was buzzing with potential solutions. I had a sense of direction and purpose for the first time since I found out about the affair. I was no longer only a victim. I was a lady with a purpose. I took a seat at my computer that evening and began planning. I started by making a list of all the things I wanted to do. I wanted to protect my financial future, reveal Tom's unethical behavior at work, make sure Sarah was held accountable for her activities, and demonstrate to my parents that I wouldn't be coerced or held responsible. I felt an increasing sensation of empowerment as I typed. I had indeed been harmed. I had indeed been deceived. However, I refused to let that define who I was. Rather, I was going to turn this suffering into motivation to start a new phase of my life. I was aware that the path ahead would not be simple. There would be more conflicts and challenging discussions. It's possible that my family won't comprehend or agree with my choices. But I felt strong for the first time in weeks. I was resolved. I made the decision to return to work tomorrow. I would take a proud stance and begin implementing my goals. Sarah and Tom believed they could treat me badly and yet get away with it. My parents believed they could use guilt to get me to ignore everything. They were all going to find out how mistaken they were. I noticed myself in the mirror as I shut down my laptop and prepared for bed. The devastated, deceived victim I had been for the previous 2 weeks was not the lady staring back at me. She was prepared to face any obstacles because she was a fighter. I said in a whisper to my reflection, "Watch out, world. I'm returning stronger than before." For the first time since this whole experience started, I felt completely at peace as I turned off the light and went to bed. I was eager to begin the first day of my new life, which was tomorrow. I'm going to talk to you now, Reddit. Have any of you had a similar situation? How did you respond to it? And how do you feel about my revenge plan? Is it excessive, or is my desire to hold them all accountable for their actions justified? As I start my new path, I would value any guidance or assistance you might provide. Update 1. 2 weeks have passed since my last post, and I would like to express my gratitude to everyone for their guidance and encouragement. Your remarks have been a lifesaver for me at this trying time. I'll give you an update because a lot has happened. The revenge strategy comes first. After speaking with my attorney, Jessica, I made the decision to act in several ways. First, we filed a formal complaint about Tom's inappropriate connection with me and his following romance with my sister with his human resources department. Considering that we are in the same industry, it was a risky move, but I couldn't allow him to get away with it. The reaction was prompt. While an inquiry was conducted, Tom was put on administrative leave. I'll admit that I felt a little satisfied as I watched him being led from the premises with a box of personal belongings. However, it didn't last long. I was struck hard by the fact that my private life was now being used as fodder for office rumors. My personal role at work has grown more complex. Even though my supervisors have been encouraging, I can sense the sidelong stares and whispered discussions that end when I walk into a room. It's obvious that people are curious about my level of knowledge, my anticipated length of stay, and my stability in managing large accounts. In an effort to demonstrate that my personal drama won't impact my professional performance, I've poured myself into my work. Things have gotten worse on the family front. Do you recall how my parents pushed for a family gathering to work things out? It was a catastrophe, but it did happen. A quiet room in a downtown restaurant served as our neutral meeting spot. My blood pressure shot up the moment I went in and saw Sarah sitting there, looking anxious yet somehow defiant. Naturally, my parents were also present, serving as mediators. My father started by saying, "Girls, we're here to talk this out like adults. Until our family decides how to proceed, nobody is going anywhere." I couldn't contain my laughter. "Go ahead? Are you serious? There is no way to move past this." Sarah's voice trembled as she spoke. "I am aware that what I did was improper. I sincerely apologize. However, shouldn't we at least attempt to resolve this?" With a mixture of anger and incredulity, I turned to face her. "Resolve this? You spent 6 months having sex with my partner. Day after day, you deceived me. What do you want to do now? Pretend it never occurred and give it a hug." "She's not saying that," my mother interrupted. "As a family, we simply want to figure out how to get better. You two have always had a tight relationship." I corrected her, saying, "We're close. Tense in the past. And who is to blame for that?" From there, the discussion took a different turn. My parents begged, Sarah wept, and I felt numb. It was obvious that they all expected me to put family unity ahead of my personal sentiments and to finally forgive and move on. I had had enough guilt-tripping and pointless discussions after an hour. With a loud scrape of my chair against the floor, I got up. "This is useless," I remarked. "It appears that you have all determined how this should proceed without taking my feelings into account. Well, I'm not complying. I'm finished." I heard my mother calling after me as I left, but I chose not to turn around. I disabled their social media accounts and phone numbers that evening. Although it was a bold step, I needed time to recover from their unrelenting pressure. Things took an intriguing turn on the Tom front. He contacted me a few days after he was placed on leave, asking me to withdraw my complaint to HR rather than offering an apology or pleading for my forgiveness. He begged over the phone that this may destroy his career. "Can't we deal with this in private?" His boldness astounded me. "Take this in private? Similar to how you and Sarah had your 6-month clandestine affair." He was bold enough to sound angry. "That isn't the same, we're talking about my livelihood here." I retorted icily, "You ought to have considered that before you chose to sleep with my sister. Tom, actions have repercussions. You need to face yours now." I experienced a range of feelings once I hung up. Hearing the desperation in his voice and knowing that he was finally being held accountable for his acts made me feel a certain amount of satisfaction. However, I was also worn out from the drama and the continual reminders of their treachery. At that point, I decided. I required a change, a new beginning. I started researching employment prospects in other cities. The idea of uprooting my life was both thrilling and horrifying, but the more I considered it, the more it seemed right. With a Seattle boutique agency, I discovered a good lead. Following a round of interviews, they offered me an offer after being impressed by my experience and portfolio. Although it was a lateral transfer in terms of employment, the opportunity to reinvent myself and the change of environment were invaluable. My supervisor was sympathetic but obviously unhappy when I gave notice at work. He questioned, "Are you certain about this? Here, you've established a solid career. Don't allow personal problems to pull you away." I was grateful for his care, but I had already made up my mind. "I'm positive," I assured him. "I need to start over on both a personal and professional level." I was shocked by how many coworkers contacted me to offer their support when word circulated about my upcoming leave. Many of them talked about how they overcame personal obstacles and changed their identities in the middle of their careers. Their words of support made me more determined. I've been going to a therapist to help me process everything in the middle of this. I have benefited greatly from Dr. Larson's 58 degrees Fahrenheit assistance in processing my anguish and anger. She has assisted me in seeing that, although my emotions are true, I must not allow them to control me. During one session, she informed me that while seeking revenge may feel good at the time, it won't make your grief go away. Living a good life and going on is the best form of retaliation. I'm making an effort to heed her advice and concentrate on creating my new life rather than destroying my previous one. It's not always simple, and sometimes I still feel like my wrath will get the better of me. But I'm getting better. As I get ready to relocate to Seattle and pack up my apartment, I'm thinking about how much has changed in only a few short weeks. My sister, my partner, and, in a sense, my parents have all passed away. However, I've also developed a new feeling of self, a resolve I was unaware I had. I am aware that the path ahead will not be simple. It's intimidating to start anew in a new city and start my life over from scratch. But I'm looking forward to the future for the first time in a long time. I'm interested to see who I'll develop into once I'm not burdened by expectations from my family or betrayal. I hear those who told me to forgive, move on, and take the high road. I no longer seek retribution for its own sake. Yes, I'm working for justice, but more than that, I'm working for my own happiness and mental health. So, Reddit, that's the current situation. I'm going to start a new chapter in my life, putting the hurt and treachery behind me. Although I'm anxious, thrilled, and a bit afraid, I'm primarily proud of myself for taking charge of my life. I appreciate all of your help and guidance, you have no idea how much it has meant. After I'm settled in Seattle, I'll provide another update. Good luck to me. Update 2. 3 months have passed since my last post, and I'm writing this from my new Seattle apartment with a view of Puget Sound. Every day, the view reminds me of my progress. It's exciting and scary to move to a new city in your late 40s. Although everything is new, there is a certain liberation that comes with not knowing. Nobody here is aware of my past, my suffering, or my guilt. Whoever I want to be, I can be. In the best way conceivable, my new position at the boutique agency has been demanding. I'm taking on multiple roles because the team is smaller. I've had to learn new talents and step outside of my comfort zone as a result. I am gradually forming new friendships. It's a start, even though it's not as good as the close relationships I had in New York. Let's move on to the fallout from my revenge plan. I place that in quotes because, in retrospect, it was more about justice and taking back control of my life than it was about getting even. In the end, Tom lost his job due to professional misconduct. A history of inappropriate behavior with other coworkers was also discovered during the HR probe. My old employer called me and thanked me for coming forward and apologized for not detecting Tom's actions sooner. The repercussions for Sarah have been less professional and more personal. As word of her affair spread, she lost acquaintances, and our parents finally seemed to understand the seriousness of what she had done. She wrote me a tearful letter last week, filled with explanations and apologies. She talked about how she had always felt like she was living in my shadow and of her own fears. The letter concluded with an appeal for pardon. For the first time, I sensed a tiny fracture in the wall of wrath I had constructed, but I'm still not there, not even close. I haven't replied yet, and I may not do so. Additionally, my parents have begun contacting me more often. Instead of advocating for reconciliation, they have been helping me adjust to my new life. In order to send a housewarming present, my mom even inquired for my address. My own self-change has been the most notable. Peace has slowly taken the place of the rage that previously overwhelmed me. Even though I still get angry occasionally, they are become less frequent and less severe. This approach has been greatly aided by my therapist, Dr. Larson. Forgiveness is something we've been working on, not for Tom or Sarah, but for me. She has aided me in seeing that forgiving someone does not include accepting their actions or allowing them to return to my life. It entails letting go of the grip that rage has on me. I've been concentrating on personal development and self-care. I've started taking photography classes, joined a reading group, and started doing yoga and meditation. I went on my first date since the whole situation last weekend. It wasn't a life-altering experience, but it was nice to meet someone new. His name is Mark, 52 million. In terms of my career, I'm succeeding in unexpected ways. My enthusiasm for advertising has been rekindled by the new beginning. I presented a campaign that challenged convention last week. We got the account because the client thought it was fantastic. It served as a potent reminder of my value on both a personal and professional level. There have also been difficulties. There are days when loneliness is too much to bear. I long for the comforts of my former existence. Sometimes I wonder why I choose to move away from everything. But then I think back to where I was only a few months ago. Angry, damaged, and caught in a vicious cycle of betrayal and suffering. I know I made the right decision when I consider how far I've come. I want those of you experiencing similar difficulties to know that there is hope. You'll make it through this. You'll discover a strength you never knew you had, and you'll emerge from the experience stronger and wiser, if not unscathed. I have a long way to go. I'm still recovering, learning, and developing. But I'm looking forward to the future for the first time in a long time. What occurred to me no longer defines me. Instead, what I decide to do next does. Reddit, I appreciate you joining me on this adventure. Some of my darkest moments have been illuminated by your encouragement. Although I have no idea what the future will bring, I am certain that I am prepared to meet it head on. When there are noteworthy developments, I'll provide another update. I'll stay here in Seattle until then, appreciating fresh starts and second chances as I watch the sunset over the Sound. Update 3, the adage, revenge is a dish best served cold, has never felt more fitting as it does now, 6 months after my last update. I've been quite busy, and now my well-planned outcomes are finally materializing. Let's start by discussing Tom. Do you recall his dismissal from our previous employer? But that was only the start. I've been methodically damaging his industry-wide professional reputation. How? Thanks to former coworkers who owed me favors, I was able to produce an anonymous blog post that detailed his misbehavior and included censored evidence from our HR department. In the world of advertising, the blog gained a lot of popularity, but I continued. Posing as a headhunter, I created a phony LinkedIn profile and contacted Tom, promising him interviews at prominent agencies. Naturally, my pals who are actors staged these interviews. Tom would arrive, wait for hours, and then be informed that the interview was not planned. This occurred 5 times before he realized what was going on. Last week was the coup de grace. Using some cunning, I managed to get Tom invited to participate in a large advertising conference. This, he believed, was his opportunity to turn his life around. He was unaware that I had positioned multiple persons in the crowd. They questioned him sharply about his prior misbehavior when it came time for Q&A. After stumbling and perspiring, Tom bounded off the stage. Since the video became public, There's no longer any prospect that he will be able to recover his career. Let's go on to Sarah. With that heartfelt letter, my darling sister believed she might slither her way back into my favor. I chose to let my deeds speak louder than my words rather than answer. I employed an excellent PI to investigate her past, and they found a wealth of information. As it happens, Sarah has a history of taking out loans from our parents and never repaying them. I submitted our parents a thorough report that included dates and amounts for each of these loans. They were, to put it mildly, shocked. However, it wasn't all. Additionally, the PI found proof that Sarah had embezzled money from her job. That little issue was resolved when her company's audit department received an anonymous tip. When I discovered that Sarah had been lying about her educational background, however, it was the cherry on top. Although she stated on her resume that she had completed her degree, she never did. After making a brief phone call to her human resources department, Sarah was declared unemployed and unemployable. Our parents, on the other hand, at last realized the truth. To supposedly clear the air, I called a family gathering. Rather, I showed a PowerPoint that listed all of Sarah's deceptions and manipulations across the years. It was immensely satisfying to see the changes in their expressions from bewilderment to shock to rage. Sarah is now totally cut off from them, both financially and emotionally. This degree of retaliation may seem extreme to you, but I can promise you that it is just. I almost got destroyed by these people. They attempted to gaslight me into forgiveness, abused my confidence, and diminished my sense of value. Forgiveness is not an option. Despite everything, I've been doing well in Seattle. My new position? I currently lead a boutique agency as its CEO. As it turns out, the owner wanted to retire, and I made him an irresistible offer. It was worthwhile even if I had to spend a sizable portion of my savings. Now, I have the authority to ban Tom and Sarah from a whole industry. My personal life has also changed in an intriguing way. Do you recall the architect, Mark? He has his own spiteful streak, it turns out. He offered some inventive ways to make his ex-wife's life miserable when she cheated on him. We are now allies in life and retaliation. Being with someone who sympathizes with my suffering and encourages me to take action is thrilling. In addition, I have established a support group for those who have experienced familial betrayal. I've gained some wonderful allies, and it's been helpful. We encourage one another, exchange tactics, and sometimes even assist one another in plotting retaliation. I adore it. It's like a book club with a twist. Some of you may be wondering if any of this makes me feel bad. The answer is definitely no. I provided Tom and Sarah the opportunity to express genuine regret and make amends. Rather, they attempted to control me and force me to forgive before I was ready. They are now realizing that their acts have repercussions. I want to respond to those of you who suggested that I be the greater person or take the high road. Sometimes it's overrated. Fire must sometimes be put out with fire. I'm not saying that everyone should follow this route, but for me, it was essential. This retaliation has been empowering, therapeutic, and well worth the effort. I feel a sense of calm that I haven't experienced in years as I sit in my corner office with a view of the Seattle skyline. The rage that used to devour me has given way to contentment. It feels amazing to be in charge of my story now. Remind yourself that you don't have to be a victim if you find yourself in a similar circumstance. You don't know how powerful you are. Don't be scared to use it, but use it carefully. My last update will be this one. I'm ending this chapter of my life by making sure that the people who harmed me never forget what they did, not by forgiving and moving on. I appreciate everyone who has followed my journey. Cheers to fresh starts, delicious retaliation, and the strength that comes from taking charge of your own destiny. Be careful, world. Not only am I back, but I'm returning with a bang. I'm divorcing my husband after he invited his ex for dinner and humiliated me. Now, everyone's saying I'm wrong for wanting out. We have a 4-year-old boy together, and Tom and I have been married for 5 years. He was an undergraduate and I was completing my master's degree when we first met in graduate school. I quit my job after getting married, but I had to go back to work when our baby was 6 months old since Tom's salary wasn't enough to support the 3 of us. Many arguments resulted from that choice since Tom believed it was disrespectful to him in some way and demonstrated my lack of confidence in his skills. I tried to persuade him for weeks that this was not related to his ability and that, in my opinion, 2 salaries would be preferable to 1. After he learned he could take some time off work to spend with our son, he finally warmed up to me after being angry with me for a long. The drawback was that I ended up doing all of the housework in addition to my job. Tom says his job is more physically demanding than mine because he works as a personal trainer at a nearby gym. He believes that since I work from a desk, I should take care of the majority of the housework. Despite working longer hours, he said, Home chores shouldn't be too taxing for me because I don't perform much physical activity at work. We had agreed when I first started working that he would assist with at least some duties, but every time I returned home, the job was only partially completed. He often claimed to be too tired as an excuse. We would argue about it all the time until I finally gave up on trying to get him to do his share. To prevent the frequent conflicts, I started taking care of everything myself. I started smoking because I was so stressed out. Tom also made fun of me for this, claiming that I was merely attempting to flaunt my level of stress. In addition to enduring Tom's constant criticism of my poor cooking, which was mostly his fault because he never assisted with meal preparation and I had to juggle everything between work and other responsibilities, I had been living like this for the past few years. Knowing that leaving would have an effect on our son's life, I stayed solely for his sake. I finally gave up and hired a maid last year, covering her money out of pocket. Tom continued to make fun of me because he believed it was a reflection of my poor housekeeping abilities. He was often contrasting me with his mother, his aunts, and other women he knew who had no trouble juggling work and home. He would simply laugh it off and tell me to calm down because it was only a joke, even though I would counter that these women most likely had supporting husbands. I would be much more enraged by that. We would occasionally have fun together, but the times he would irritate me were what I remembered, and I had been thinking about getting a divorce for a while. When Tom brought his ex-girlfriend Lucy, 28F, home for supper last week, I finally lost it. His high school girlfriend Lucy and he dated for nearly 6 years before splitting up because they were attending different universities. The first time he saw her was at the grocery store. She had just moved into our area and had asked her over for supper without even asking me. Even after our marriage, Tom's friends would frequently bring her up and make fun of him for it, so I knew these two were quite the item in high school. However, that didn't prepare me for his overly pleasant and flirtatious behavior during dinner. He was clearly attempting to irritate me, and it was succeeding. That was the second strike. Then the third strike. He began making jokes about what a messy housewife I would be and how fortunate I was to have my career as a justification. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to explain to any of my guests why I'm such a bad cook. Because Lucy is a stay-at-home mother of 2 girls, he continued making jokes about how much better she was at everything than I was. He joked that I would never be caught doing anything like that after telling me that Lucy was actually at the grocery store purchasing ingredients for a French dish she intended to prepare for her husband. It made them both laugh a lot. He also mentioned my smoking, claiming that I was only trying to flaunt my stress levels, much like Lucy, who is flawless at everything. I was fighting back tears by that point, but I chose to smile through it all because I didn't want Lucy to get the pleasure of seeing me cry. I decided to leave after serving them ice cream for dessert because it was an embarrassing experience. I waited until Tom went to bed that evening. This wasn't odd because I typically clean the dishes at night and don't go to bed until he's sleeping. I packed some clothes and other essentials for our son and myself, booked a cab, and went to my parents' place as soon as he started snoring. By the time I arrived, it was almost midnight. I started crying as soon as my mother opened the door and I attempted to explain. My youngster, who was irritable and perplexed, started crying as a result. Since I wasn't sure whether Tom could take good care of him while I was away and I didn't want to leave him to find out, I had to bring him along. Without asking, my parents took us in, and when they put my son to bed, I was at last able to collect myself and tell them everything. Tom called me in a hurry the following morning to find out where I was. The worry in his voice vanished and he burst out laughing when I told him the truth and announced that I was going to file for divorce. He advised me to just come home and stop the turmoil. I became so enraged by that I began ranting at him, accusing him of being a misogynistic, lazy, selfish, and inept man. He finally appeared to get that I was serious when I told him that I would rather be single for the rest of my life than return to him. He began arguing with me on the phone, accusing me of exaggerating and making a huge fuss out of nothing, rather than offering an apology. He asserted that there was no need to take things personally and that his jokes were merely an attempt to lighten the atmosphere around Lucy. The problem is that his jokes weren't hilarious. They were nasty and cruel, especially considering that I was already making every effort. Every day he simply continued to test my limits. He began acting like the victim when he realized that this was more than just a joke, saying that I had been plotting my departure for some time and that this was the final straw. Currently, all of our friends are texting me to tell me that I should prioritize our family over myself and not allow a few dumb jokes to ruin our marriage. Everyone keeps saying that I shouldn't ruin a home over some jokes, even though I've attempted to explain that there are a lot of things they don't know. Some people seem to feel more at ease when I posted an explanation of all I had previously discussed. Tom also noticed it and remarked that I should have notified him if these were my issues, and he would have taken care of it. I've been telling him these things for years, but it hasn't changed, so it's absurd. I just finished, and it felt like I was speaking to a wall. But following that post, he began to insist that he only needed one final shot to make it work and that he would change and get better. He convinced some of our acquaintances to try to convince me to stay by telling me that he would undoubtedly improve and make a fantastic spouse. However, it irritates me that he continually bringing up our pals. He seems to be using a deceptive and immature strategy, peer pressure, to try to talk me out of pursuing a divorce. Over the past few years, I've given him numerous opportunities to get better, but he's never done so I don't think he's capable of changing anymore. Even if I stayed right now, I'm confident that he would attempt to make a sincere effort for a few months before reverting to his previous conduct. I'm tired of being a single mother even though I have a spouse, and I'm not getting any younger. He's hardly the ideal role model for our son, aside from anything else. I most certainly do not want my son to grow up in a home where Tom's kind of behavior is accepted. For the sake of my son, I stayed with him for a very long time, and now I'm leaving him for the same reason. I filed for divorce 2 days ago, and he was served today. He is upset primarily because he never wanted a divorce in the first place, and because I have asked to keep the house where we lived and filed for full custody of our son, or sell it and divide the proceeds 60-40, with me receiving the larger portion. Since both of our parents gave us the house as a wedding present, I believe it is only just that I keep it or that we divide the proceeds from its sale. Because of all the labor and effort I've put in over the past few years, working full-time, raising my son, and handling all home chores without his assistance, I feel that I should be given the greater part. I believe the petition is quite reasonable because I'm not even asking for alimony. Even though I want a divorce, Tom claims I'm being unfair and that I shouldn't have asked for full custody because our son is equally his and mine. Which is reasonable, but I don't believe he's capable of being a father. He may still visit and see his son whenever he wants to. I haven't attempted to take away his visiting privileges. He simply does not have him on a full-time basis. After I was served, he called and said I was being crazy and that this was a terrible overreaction. He claimed that since I was requesting full custody in the house, he already didn't agree with the divorce and had good reason to think I was being irrational. It was really embarrassing when he broke down in tears on the other end when I stated that I had thought a lot about it and that it hadn't been easy for me either. It's very clear from everything I've written that Tom isn't a particularly emotional person, so his breakdown is a huge issue. He was crying and told me, very dramatically, that he had taken everything for granted because he never thought he could bear to lose me one day. He pleaded with me to give him one final opportunity to demonstrate his ability to be a wonderful father and husband. I had to let him know that my decision was definite and that he had come to the realization a bit too late, even though it was really difficult for me to do so. I couldn't simply return to the life. It was strange and uncomfortable for me to have to stay on the phone and try to comfort him for the following several minutes as he began to cry even more. He eventually stopped sobbing and declared that if our son suffered as a result, he would never be able to forgive either himself or me. We might renegotiate the terms of his custody in a few years when he's a little older, so I reassured him that this was only a temporary arrangement. I informed him that although this would be difficult for us both, we needed to strive to be strong for our son's sake and make the most of our circumstances. However, he quickly ended the call, and for the next few hours, I didn't hear from anyone. But all of a sudden, our pals have been contacting me once more, telling me that what I'm doing is fundamentally wrong and that I should think twice before acting. They're arguing that rather than being so heartless and self-centered, I should give it some thought since Tom is pleading for one more chance. It was only a handful at first, but now it's almost everyone we know, and I'm beginning to seriously think about changing my mind because I might be the bad guy here. I have no idea anymore. Since my husband doesn't assist me, am I the jerk for requesting a divorce and full custody of our son? Hello, following a very hectic week, I'm back with an update. My lawyer and I have been getting ready for the talks. For the divorce settlement and custody dispute, Tom and I will first meet with the mediator appointed by the court. The actual divorce process doesn't worry me too much, but I'm quite anxious about the custody dispute. Everyone keeps saying that my desire for full custody is absurd, but they don't see the big picture. Our son spends more time with me and always has, so I know he favors me. We all know that's not how kids operate, but Tom has always attempted to build a relationship with our son just on his terms. Observing Tom's abrupt change into a worried father has been one of the most annoying aspects of the previous week. He has been making false claims on social media about how much he misses his son and how unfair it is that he is unable to see him. He hasn't attempted, but he is welcome to come at any time. These posts have been reposted by a number of mutual acquaintances, who have added their own remarks about what a loving parent he is. The truth is very different. Even our son's daily schedule, preferred meals, and allergies are unknown to Tom. He called us only recently to inquire if our youngster still enjoys dinosaur-shaped nuggets. Due to his current space-themed food obsession, our son hasn't had those in more than a year. These minor details cast doubt on his capacity to serve as a main caregiver. Given that I have been actively involved in our son's life while Tom has only occasionally done so, my lawyer believes we have a solid case. Everything from the doctor's visits I've taken our son to, the parent-teacher conferences Tom has missed, and the daily schedule I've kept up while working a full-time job are all being documented. The financial side of things is a complete disaster. Some preliminary documents were sent over by Tom's lawyer, who is disputing my request for the house. They contend that it ought to be divided equally because it was a wedding present from both families. Conveniently, they fail to mention that I have been responsible for all of the upkeep, fixes, and upgrades throughout the years. The incessant barrage of messages from people who hardly understand our predicament is what's truly getting to me. Even some of Tom's gym patrons have contacted me to express their sadness and to tell me what a wonderful man he has always been. They seem to be living in a different universe where having a charming personality at work inevitably translates into being a good spouse and father. My mother-in-law's response has been the most unexpected development. She genuinely phoned me to let me know that she understood my decision, in contrast to the majority of our friends who have sided with Tom. She disclosed that during the early years of their marriage, she and Tom's father experienced similar problems, but she decided to stay and try to resolve them. I could tell how that worked out for her just by the resignation in her voice as she stated those words. All of this has been made possible by the tremendous support of my own parents. When I need to meet with lawyers or take care of paperwork, my mom has been watching our son while my dad helps me manage my financial documents. I've come to appreciate how alone and unsupported I felt in my marriage thanks to their assistance. To be honest, there have been occasions when the tension has been too much to handle. For the first time since I moved out, I found myself reaching for a cigarette last night, but I restrained myself. I came to the realization that my smoking was not a necessity, but rather a result of my marital dissatisfaction. You get clarity in these moments, which is odd. Late at night, Tom has begun texting me lengthy texts that range from tearful pleas to irate accusations. He mentioned in his most recent message that he has been learning how to properly do washing and cooking by viewing tutorials. If it weren't so depressing, it would almost be humorous. At the age of 28, he is only now choosing to develop these fundamental life skills. Screenshots of Tom's private social media posts, in which he offers his perspective, have been sent by several mutual acquaintances. He presents himself as a loving spouse who was taken by surprise by a wife who had never expressed her displeasure. People are accusing me of being cold-hearted and speculating that I may be experiencing a midlife crisis in the comments section. That one made me laugh. It seems like I'm already experiencing a midlife crisis at the age of 35. My lawyer told me not to react to any of these provocations, but to record everything. She claims that when he engages in this type of deceptive behavior in public, it actually helps our cause. It's difficult to avoid feeling under attack from all sides, though. Observing how much more at ease our son has been since we relocated to my parents' place is the one thing that keeps me grounded. He appears to be happier overall and is eating and sleeping better. Naturally, he still inquires about his father, but he isn't as worried about it as he was when we all shared a home and things were tense. Next week is the date of my first mediation session. Even though my lawyer has prepared me for this, I'm still anxious. I'm aware that it will be a challenging process because Tom's attorney has already stated that they intend to vigorously oppose the full custody request. Every day that goes by makes me feel more certain about my choice, even with all the pressure and second guessing from others. I've been reminded of what a supportive home is like by living with my parents. For the first time in years, I'm getting enough sleep, and I'm beginning to recall my former self before I got so caught up in trying to make an impossible scenario work. As we begin the legal proceedings, the upcoming weeks will be critical. After the mediation session, I'll provide another update, but for now, I just wanted to express my gratitude to everyone who helped me with my first post. When I was most doubting myself, your remarks kept me going. Update 2. Tom paid us a visit at my parents' house today. Since my last update, which was a week and a half ago, I must admit that I was terrified of this encounter. This was most likely our final informal meeting before the actual legal process starts, as we have our mediation session in a few days. Given all of his recent passionate text messages, I anticipated this visit to be contentious. But today's events fundamentally altered my viewpoint on a number of issues. Tom was standing there when I answered the door, looking more put together than I had seen him in a long time. In addition to bringing a small gift bag for our son, he was dressed appropriately in a button-down shirt rather than his typical gym clothing. His manner truly caught my attention. None of the defensiveness or animosity I had been bracing myself for was present. Even when we were married, he seldom ever engaged in small chat with my parents. He talked to my dad about some local sports and inquired about my mom's garden. Yes, it was embarrassing, yet oddly polite. This unexpectedly normal conversation lasted for approximately 15 minutes before he asked to see our son. It took me a bit to answer because the way he asked, not demanded, but asked, was already so different from how he usually behaves. When we entered the living room, our son was playing. His whole face brightened when he spotted Tom. "Daddy!" he yelled, dropping his toys and sprinting directly into Tom's embrace. I saw their contact from the doorway. When I brought up our son's new space passion in the custody documents, Tom brought a new puzzle, one with spaceships, demonstrating that he had genuinely listened. Tom led our kid to take the lead in assembling it, something he had never done before, and they sat on the floor together. Typically, he attempted to regulate the activities and became irate when our son did not precisely follow his directions. Hearing Tom inquire about our son's day, his daycare pals, and his favorite aspects of living at Grandma and Grandpa's place truly got to me. He truly listened to our son's meandering responses about the treehouse in the backyard and the neighbor's cat. I had never witnessed him interact with our son in this way in all the years we had been married. At one occasion, our son began to tell Tom about how I prepare rocket-shaped sandwiches for him. Previously, Tom would have made a snarky remark about my culinary abilities, but now he wanted our kid to show him how. Our son took his father's instruction on how to properly assemble a rocket sandwich extremely seriously, and they spent the next 20 minutes in the kitchen. Our son's question about when he may see his father again was the true turning point. I was struck by the hopeful expression on both of their cheeks. Tom didn't try to control the situation or make demands right away. He simply stared at me while he awaited my answer. When it was time for Tom to leave after they had finished playing, our son gave him a big embrace and invited him to return the next day. Tom gave me a curious look, and before I had given it much thought, I found myself nodding. Before Tom went, we had a little conversation at the door. He admitted that he had been a terrible father thus far, without displaying his customary defensiveness. He acknowledged that he realized how much he had missed by not being more involved after witnessing our son's growth and transformation in only these few weeks. Even though he couldn't be a better husband, he assured me he was willing to learn everything he could to become a better father. He said he had been attending parenting classes 3 times a week and had hired a nanny to teach him how to properly care for children. Not to gloat, but to show me that he was serious about this, he displayed the diplomas on his phone. He didn't make any lofty claims about changing or try to get me to return. He simply asked me to reevaluate the complete custody agreement instead. He proposed that we arrange a timetable that would allow him to demonstrate his ability to be a responsible parent without interfering with our son's daily routine. I phoned my lawyer after he departed. The following paragraph is logically separated and punctuated. I informed her that I would be willing to talk about a joint custody agreement and that I no longer wanted to pursue full custody. She brought up all of the records we had collected demonstrating Tom's prior lack of involvement, but I told her that even if he hadn't been a good husband, I needed to give him an opportunity to improve as a father. Our son's expression of unadulterated happiness today made me realize that, even though it's the proper thing to terminate my marriage, I don't have the authority to break off my son's relationship with his father, especially now that Tom is finally demonstrating that he wants to be the father our son deserves. Update 3. Surprisingly, the divorce talks are proceeding considerably more amicably than I had anticipated. Tom and his attorney have been extremely helpful, which I believe is his way of expressing regret for his previous actions. Our son's custody arrangements are still being worked out verbally and informally, but we're thinking that he should spend half of the month at his dad's house and the other half at mine. Actually, we're doing just that at the moment. In a few days, my son will move in with his father. This arrangement first made me nervous, but Tom has really come through for me. To his great relief, he has begged his mother for assistance. She has been more supportive than some of my closest friends, even when our marriage ended. She still gives me a call every day to see how I'm doing and sends me photos of the bedroom she's helping Tom furnish for our boy. Additionally, the house matter has been settled more readily than I had thought. In recognition of the extra effort I had put in over the years, Tom agreed to sell it and divide the revenues 55-45 in my favor. This solution was actually proposed by his attorney, demonstrating their sincere desire to be fair. In addition, Tom has taken a co-parenting course, which was suggested by the mediator but not necessary. Through our new co-parenting app, which allows us to manage appointments, calendars, and our son's activities without having to speak to each other directly, he has been updating me on his progress. The way Tom manages our son's space period has been the most unexpected development. His apartment's spare room has been converted into a miniature planetarium, complete with ceiling-mounted glow-in-the-dark stars. In order to maintain continuity between houses, he asked me for our son's nighttime ritual, which he has been practicing with his mother. Since neither of us believes that a 2-week period without seeing either parent is healthy for our son, I continue to see him every few days while Tom is away. We've arranged for Wednesday supper with whoever doesn't have him that week and alternating weekends. Instead of rehashing our marital problems, the mediation sessions have been fruitful since they have focused on realistic co-parenting techniques. Regarding managing school schedules, healthcare decisions, and holiday plans, Tom has been actively engaging, taking notes, and posing pertinent questions. No more conflict on social media or late-night texts. We've set clear contact boundaries. Our lawyers or the co-parenting app handle everything. In a last update, Tom willingly removed all of his earlier posts regarding our predicament and said that we are resolving the matter in private for the sake of our son. Through all of this, his mother has been an unanticipated blessing. In addition to teaching Tom how to be a parent, she also acts as a mediator between us when tensions arise. She set up a meeting with both sets of grandparents last week so we could have a reasonable conversation about our disagreements over preschool alternatives. In the end, we came up with a solution that satisfied everyone. Our son appears to be adjusting to the new situation rather nicely. Although we're attempting to keep things somewhat consistent by bringing his favorite stuffed animals with him when he moves between homes, he is thrilled to have 2 rooms and 2 sets of toys. Without showing any signs of concern, he stopped asking when we were returning home and instead talked about mommy's and daddy's houses. Our lawyers are taking care of the financial matters expertly. With explicit instructions on how much each of us will pay and how the funds may be utilized, we are creating a joint account especially for our son's costs. Tom proposed this on his own because he wanted to make sure that our financial obligations as co-parents were transparent. We have a thorough parenting plan that addresses everything from medical choices to education. Even instructions on how to manage future relationships have been included, such as meeting any possible new partners before presenting them to our kid. I am aware that there are still obstacles in our way. This is only the start of our co-parenting adventure, and there will surely be setbacks. However, for the first time since it all started, I have genuine hope that we will be able to prioritize our son's needs and cooperate as parents, even if we are unable to cooperate as spouses. The most important thing is that my son is happier than I have seen him in months. Both Tom and I now realize that letting go of the previous hurts is less essential than becoming good co-parents. I'm glad we were able to come to an agreement that prioritizes our son's welfare while still enabling us to have deep connections with him. I appreciate all of your help and guidance during this trip. When I was having self-doubt, your advice kept me going and helped me make choices that would benefit my son and myself. This community has been an amazing source of insight and strength.